Paapa was cast as Snape, and many fans took flight.
Some pointed out that Snape had been written as white.
A few went too far and wished Paapa harm.
But Paapa stood his ground without raising alarm. Good on him for doing so, and we are going to explain why we think that.
Here's what we're going to go into. So there's an article that's been circulating today, which we have to call out the real villains here, and it's not Paapa. Do you know who it is?
Mainstream media, as usual, twisting his words into something he did not actually say.
Because if you look here, the title says, Paapa Essiedu on his Harry Potter trolls. They say, quit or I'll murder you. Now, if you read that, you would roll your eyes and go, it's people playing victim again and blah. But here's the real reality. What if I told you he never said that?
Because he didn't. We have an excerpt right here on the screen for you guys that we will read to you.
Yeah, and here's the important part. I went to the source article where this came from, and when we read you the context, I'm going to be fully honest with you guys. I still do not think that he is the correct casting for Snape, and you will never be able to convince me that he is.
Yes.
There are things that fundamentally change just by having him be the role of Snape.
Yes. And maybe he'll still do the character justice, but regardless, he's not a good casting for Snape. That's just facts. And we're sorry that people will disagree with that, but it is the facts. Snape was written a certain way. HBO said that they were going to be a faithful adaptation with this series. And in casting Snape this way, they completely 180'd that, stabbed everyone in the back, and delivered a false promise.
Yes, but with Paapa Essiedu here, this is not what he said. He did not say this. And so we're going to read you the actual context because, and this is going to shock people, as I said, I don't think that he is the correct role, and I will never change my opinion. However, I think that he handled this situation correctly.
With extreme grace and integrity.
Doesn't mean he's right for Snape. Doesn't mean I magically give him a pass. But it means that the mainstream media has got to answer some questions because they wanted clicks, and that's the only reason they took his stuff out of context. So it's a response to the Harry Potter backlash. He says, it really matters, he says. The reality is that if I look at Instagram, I will see someone saying, I'm going to come to your house and kill you. So while I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be murdered, he laughs nervously, that could age badly. But yes, while I hope I'll be okay, no one should have to encounter this doing their job. Many people put their lives on the line in their work. I'm playing a wizard in Harry Potter, and I'd be lying if I said it doesn't affect me emotionally.
But he followed that up with this. But the abuse fuels me and makes me more passionate about making this character my own, because I think of how I felt as a kid. I would imagine myself at Hogwarts on broomsticks, and the idea that a kid like me can see themselves represented in that world, that's motivation to not be intimidated by someone saying they'd rather I died instead of doing work I'm going to be really proud of.
Now, he also says, so the guy says, could he stay offline? He says, but even if you successfully ignore it, that doesn't mean it's not happening. Essiedu says, the issue remains endemic, and anyways, people see stuff and message to ask if I'm okay. Has he reported any of the death threats? He says, no. I don't think some 17-year-old boy being put in jail for 2 weeks for threatening to murder me would actually make me feel any better.
Now tell me, does that sound like someone playing victim to you?
It sounds like someone who's recognized the reality of the situation. And again, I want to make very clear, I'm not saying this magically makes him okay for Snape. It doesn't.
It really doesn't. Because he does not look like Snape. I'm sorry, he just doesn't.
It changes the context of the scenes, but the mainstream media is going like, he says his trolls say, quit or I'll murder you. No, he was saying if he goes on Instagram, there will be bad comments, but he doesn't let them affect him. They do affect him emotionally, but he allows it to fuel him, and it makes him more determined to make the character his own, and that he's not going to report or avoid them because he can't avoid them. And he's not going to report it because someone getting arrested or whatever over something silly like that won't matter. Does that sound like he's playing victim?
He should have been cast as someone else, perhaps Kingsley Shacklebolt, or maybe another teacher, but not Snape, who was written a specific way.
And one could argue that he put himself in this situation, which, to be fair, he did. He accepted the role. But at the same time, I can dislike the fact that he was cast as Snape and recognize that he's still a decent actor and that nobody deserves death threats. I think that's not a controversial opinion.
I mean, I don't like that he was cast as Snape, but I do not wish death upon him.
I just think the biggest problem with this is the mainstream media is running around saying, hey, he said, your trolls say quit or I'll murder you, and he's being harassed. That's not what he said. He
not
said,
what happened at all.
If I go on my Instagram, I'll see bad comments and I let them fuel me and I move on with my life.
Which is that's just honestly a correct way to deal with it.
I'm not saying everything he said was perfect, nor am I saying it magically fixes any problems, just what he said. But at the same time, I think the fact that he is at least not playing victim, which is not what he's doing with this thing. You can't say he is. I don't even think you should be making this character your own. I think that you should be adhering to this character that you were assigned. That's just my opinion.
But we can respect that he handled this very well.
But that's what I'm saying. Even if he is wrong for having this role and keep saying in it, and even if we don't agree, I will at least recognize that the mainstream media is making it seem like he's going, my haters are wishing death, which is 100% not what he did here.
He put words in his mouth and took what he actually said out of context.
So again, not giving him a pass, not saying that magically absolves him of whatever, but at the same time, I think the mainstream media is clearly playing this up for clicks, and that's not what he said. And so, again, doesn't mean I agree with everything he said, doesn't mean I agree with him being in the role, but I can recognize that at least he didn't play victim, unlike other people, like, for example, Rachel Ziegler or other people in the past who have literally played victim. This is not playing victim. This is saying, hey, I've noticed the hate, and I'm moving on from it. Whether he's doing that correctly or in the right way, that's up to debate. That's a different discussion. But I'm not going to pretend that he went out there and said, oh, my haters are wishing death, when that's not what he did.
No, that would just give me even more reason to not like him. It's not a disrespectful response. It's a well thought out response that does not attack anyone.
It doesn't attack anybody. It even says that reporting them would be completely wrong to do, and that he's just going to move on. And you know what? I'm not going to watch this show. They've burned that bridge already by casting him, but I can recognize that he's a good actor. And you know what? He doesn't deserve death threats. That doesn't mean you can't criticize what he said. You are absolutely allowed, but get the full context before immediately assuming that he ran out there and attacked critics, which is not what he did. My opinion is, if I was in this situation, I get that he might want work, and this is probably something that would give him a lot of work for a lot of time. If I was in this situation, I would have turned down the role, personally. That's my opinion. That's a controversial opinion for some, but that's what I would have done. But the way he handled this discussion was much better, and we can at least give him props for that.
Yes, I agree.
Share with your crew, escape life's hell. From spooky memes to advice obscure, here's your dark solace of humor as a cure.